Welcome to the Wedding Songs Podcast, featuring newly released songs you need to know and the tried and true classics. Get song ideas from the time guests arrive until the last dance of the reception. And now your host, Matt Campbell, founder of MyWeddingSongs.com.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wedding Songs Podcast. I am Matt Campbell. Today, we're going to be talking about music inclusivity. Today's guest to help me along with this is Staci Nichols, also known as DJ Track Star Staci. She is coming to you from Southern California, but travels the world DJing. Welcome to the show, Staci.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I'm very excited about this topic, and thank you for being on the show today to bring some light to something that I think a lot of wedding pros really don't think about, but not only wedding pros, corporations, and anybody that's planning an event. Just to get started a little bit, can you talk about your most memorable performance as a DJ?
Wow, there have been so many. I think probably my favorite ever was I got a gig to perform at a resort in Cabo San Lucas on New Year's Eve on the beach. They totally rolled out the red carpet for me. I was there for a couple of days on this free vacation. I stayed in a really nice suite. Everything was free. They were driving me around to look at their different properties. You're going to do like a teaser set at the pool here at this resort, and then another teaser set at the pool at this resort, and leading up to the main event on New Year's. And then during the actual event on New Year's, they had girls dancing on the stage. I had a hype guy. There was fireworks. I mean, I felt like Diplo. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You think of New Year's Eve, yeah, the fireworks, and wow, what a show for sure.
It was crazy. And I knew immediately, oh, I should hire a photographer. I'm probably going to want to use these for brand photos later. And we got some great shots with the fireworks behind me and all that. So yeah, and those are some that turned out to be some of my favorite pictures too.
Oh, that's awesome. Those are the times that, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have that thought just when I'm in a ballroom somewhere, but that was definitely my favorite. For
awesome.
Sure.
So can you tell everybody a little bit about you for those who don't know you?
Sure. I've been a professional DJ for 16 years. I have been full-time for probably the last 10 of that. I've done a lot of speaking. I've spoken at DJ Expo, Mobile Beat, MEX, Wedding NBA, Midwest DJs Live, Canadian Pro DJs, and I have written for DJ Times, Digital DJ Tips, Book More Brides, BPM Supreme. So definitely tried to get out there and share the wealth and spread some marketing tips and topics like what we're going to talk about today.
You're definitely well known in the DJ industry, and I'm very thankful that you're on the show today.
Well, thank you.
I just wanted to get started on our main topic today. Can you describe what inclusivity in music means to you?
Yeah, so just a little background. I studied sociology in college, and this is a lot of what I'm sitting in class learning day in and day out for years. So it's something that I really pay attention to. It's important to me. And then, of course, being a woman, being a female DJ, you're looking through a different lens than what most other DJs are. So inclusivity just in general means making sure that people who are typically excluded, like marginalized groups, the people kind of standing on the outside, that those people are being seen, acknowledged, represented, heard, and really just bringing the margins into the center or widening the circle so everyone's included.
I think that that's such an important topic. And like you said, bringing everybody into the music that's played. So today's radio stations are gender skewed. Can you share more about your findings in the music exclusivity?
You know, it's definitely not just radio. It is permeated throughout the entire music industry and the world. Sexism is happening in all kinds of different places everywhere. But yeah, this is where I printed out my notes because I did have a lot of statistics on this topic, which some of these are just ridiculously mind-blowing. I'm going to read these statistics, but before I get into it, just to remember that women make up 51% of the population. Our suicide rates are lower. We have a longer life expectancy, blah, blah, blah. So we're actually the only majority group that is marginalized. So when you consider these numbers, thinking about, wow, this is a majority group, and it's ridiculous. So 14% of the songs on US radio are by women. 1% of dance music on British radio is by women. 9% of country radio is songs by women. 22% in general of recording artists are women. 14% of radio shows feature a female lead, or like the morning show host be a woman, only 14%. 13% of professional songwriters are women. 3% of music producers are women. 14% of record executives are women. And this one really, really gets me because I feel like country music has a pretty conservative reputation. 83% of country music listeners wish that more women were played on country radio.
Yeah.
That's staggering.
Just as a side note, one of my favorite recent books, it's called Her Country, and it talks about how women are excluded on the radio. And she did a study where the radio stations were never playing two female country artists in a row. I mean, the stats are unbelievable. And she says in the book, it's changing a little bit with the newer stars like Kelsey Ballerini, Maren Morris, and things are really changing now. So we're all hoping. And the downturn happened with the Chicks, or formerly known as the Dixie Chicks, when they came out with the political. And so that's when radio stations really started to pull back. Hopefully it's changing now.
I distinctly remember when that happened, and I still am a huge Dixie Chicks fan. I had gone to their concert, and I remember where I was sitting at my desk at work listening to my radio in my cubicle when the country station announced we're not playing the Dixie Chicks anymore. It was a pivotal moment.
Speaking more about the music, what are your thoughts on inclusivity in the song lyrics?
I think that's a huge part of it, because when you look at the numbers that we're just talking about, it's not just music's not being played, but the music that's being created is clearly very male centric. And that, you know, it's not just in the types of genres that men prefer and everything, but it's seeping through in the lyrics and the actual content of the music. And if you've ever seen a music video, women are for decoration. They are objects that just dance on the side. That's the main purpose of a woman in a music video. So yeah, as far as lyrics go, when I spoke about this topic at MEX, I put up a couple of really misogynistic rap lyrics on the screen. I just presented it to people by saying, okay, who would feel comfortable playing a song where a white person called a brown person a beaner? And everyone's like, oh, she said beaner, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I can't believe I said, but you know what I mean? I'm trying to make a point. And then I'm like, okay, well, who would feel comfortable playing a song where a white person called a black person the N-word? Eesh, right? And then I was like, okay, who feels comfortable playing a song where men call women bitches? And then everyone was like, oh yeah, I do that all the time. We all do that. Women do that. We all do that. It's just so acceptable for women to be devalued, and this misogynistic rape culture that's just so prevalent in our music. It's just so prevalent we don't even see it. It's like air. Yeah, it's a problem.
Well, I think what you're saying, that we're getting so used to it that we're accepting it. And that's what the challenge is, I think, that I'm trying to portray in this podcast episode, is that you should be thinking about that. We always think of wedding songs of, oh, it can't be a breakup song. Well, that's why we're bringing up that let's take it one step further and really listen to the lyrics that are played.
Yes, I was at a wedding once playing Run Around Sue, which is so upbeat. And someone came over and like, you can't play this, it's about cheating. And I'm like, but it's so upbeat, you know? And then I'm like, gosh, I really have to think even deeper about what I'm saying, because people are listening to the lyrics. They are hearing the lyrics.
Yep, exactly. Getting a little bit away from the lyrics, not only are many DJs set on gender dominant, but they are also commonly culturally dominant. Why and how can you represent your audience in your music that's played?
Again, this is coming from a perspective of living and DJing in Southern California. My entire DJ career has either been living here in Southern California or living in Mexico, doing predominantly destination weddings when I was out there. So for me, when my main concern with this is that Mexican people and Mexican culture is just completely non-existent from any sort of public setting whatsoever. If I go to the grocery store and I'm listening to the music, or any kind of retail store in Southern California where half of the people here are Mexican, they do not exist musically. They are not being represented at all. And I feel like there's some misunderstandings, misconceptions. Oh, I play reggaeton all the time. I always play Bad Bunny. I put on Danza Kuduro. I play Suavemente. None of that music is Mexican. None of that is from Mexico. And I remember when I was presenting this at Mex, I kind of jokingly said to people, is anyone realizing they've been serving Taco Bell musically at Cinco de Mayo gigs, right? Mexican music is cumbias and banda, and that music is just not being played anywhere in a retail setting. Obviously, private events, that's a different thing. So I'm mostly just referring to retail stuff, but just a quick takeaway for people, but Mexicans are the biggest group of minorities in the country. So even if you don't live in Southern California or in Texas or wherever, it's probably still a good idea to familiarize yourself a little bit with some Mexican music. That's never a bad idea.
I totally agree. We talked about this on a Latin episode, and it's the same thing of playing Latin music. Well, that's so broad. You have to know with your audience and where they're from. I would say even in Mexico, what part of Mexico, because it could be different styles of Mexican music.
Yes. So once, and this must have been, 5 years ago or more, it was my first year going to DJ Expo, and I went to a seminar that was about Latin music. And I was super excited because, again, having lived in Mexico, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to learn some great new songs. I love throwing in Latin music in the set wherever I am. And when I got there, I quickly realized the presenters were from New York, which is a predominantly Puerto Rican area. So in this entire 1 hour seminar, the word cumbia or banda was never mentioned because Mexican people are just not represented well in their geographic area, which I completely understand. It was a really insightful lesson for me on I should really learn more about Cuban and Puerto Rican music and which genre is from where, so I can be a better DJ. But it was really eye-opening. And again, yes, not only is there diversity in different countries, but in regions of the country. Like, for example, one of the most popular kinds of music in Mexico is called norteños, which just means northern. It's just music from the north. That's all. So it really is important, for sure.
And knowing your music. So most people, when they think of Latin music, they always think of Bad Bunny. And you have to realize when you are playing Mexican music in Mexico, Bad Bunny is actually number 2. Peso Pluma is number 1. So if you don't know that music, you have to be more inclusive and make everybody feel comfortable for your audience. I think that's the big takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. I lived on the west coast of Mexico in Puerto Vallarta, and then I lived on the east coast of Mexico in Cancun. And when I got to Cancun, I was like, oh, it's house music here. It's reggaeton here, and it was very, very different playing music for local people than it was on the other side of the country, where over there, if you put on a reggaeton song, you clear the dance floor and people will give you snide looks. You're be getting some side eyes. In Cancun, if you put on banda, people are going to be like, is my grandma here? What? Why are you playing this? So yeah, just like anywhere else, there are regional differences.
Absolutely. I talk about this all the time, even in country music. There's different types of country music. You have to know your audience, for sure.
It's a process.
Going along with that, do you think that DJs have a social responsibility to play more inclusive music?
I feel like, yes, of course, absolutely we do. But I think if you take a step back and you think about how powerful what we do is, I can put on a song right now, Matt, and I can change your mood. I could make you cry. I could make your heart sing and feel with love in just like that, just with a touch of a button. And there's all kinds of statistics and research backing up music helps your health and it can lower your heart, all this kind of stuff. And I think we're all aware of that, but we need to remember just how important it is when we're at an event. When again, particularly events in public, if you're at a corporate event, especially retail events. But one thing I hear, obviously as a woman, I follow a lot of other female DJs, and one thing that never loses its grip on me is when I hear other female DJs talk about the little girl that walks up to her during the set and it's like, oh, you're a girl. I could do this. Like, I could be the DJ that's at the store or at Universal City Walk or whatever. And it's such a powerful feeling. And when you've been in that position where you've seen that young mind connect with, I could do that. She's up there. I could be up there. And of course, again, there's all this research backing up. If you've never seen somebody else do it, then you just can't imagine yourself there and how important that is. But there is just something inside you when these little girls recognize that. And for me as well, I do a lot of Nordstrom gigs. And of course, it's this very upscale establishment, and they have a well-known brand that's fairly conservative and a niche market. And one of the things that's important to me, regardless of where I am, is playing Spanish music. And a lot of Hispanic, Spanish-speaking people have never heard ever in their whole lives a cumbia or a banda song, a song that would be played at their own backyard family event. They've never heard that song exist anywhere outside their backyard. And there have been so many times where I'm at the bottom of the escalators there at the Nordstrom and I am playing a cumbia from Mexico, and I will see a kid walk around the corner and see me and just be like, oh, not only am I really here, like someone is playing it on purpose. It's not just some accident on the shuffle on the playlist of the store. Like, this music is in, and the person playing it isn't brown. You know? And to me, I just feel like that never gets old. So as a DJ, once you've experienced that, you will understand why this is so important.
I love that. And not only for culturally, I think even for female artists too, where you're thinking, you're planning out your playlist. You know, the two biggest concerts are Beyonce and Taylor Swift. But not only that, you have Katy Perry, you have Britney Spears, all of these people that molded girls as they were growing up. And that's the music that they love. I don't want to stereotype, but why not include the influential female artists into your sets instead of always playing the male artists that are popular?
Yeah, I think too, a lot of DJs are well aware of the fact that 99% of the time, if you've got a dance floor in front of you, the people opening up your dance floor and really saving your behind, because they're getting the dancing going for you, those are always women. So why aren't we playing music that caters to these people who are doing us such a huge favor by getting our dance floor going? And one of the things that I said at Mex too was like, hey, what if, I'm throwing this out as a challenge to everyone in the audience, what if you took the songs that were in your girls' night or your diva jams or your femme gems crate? What if you took those songs and you copied them and you put them in your dance floor bangers crate? Yes, you can still have them separate for when you're at that all-female entrepreneur conference. Sure, of course, have them over there. But what if they also existed in your mainstream crate and they were just part of that? Just a challenge to throw out there.
There's more artists than just Shania Twain.
Yes.
So do you have a strategy then for seamlessly mixing the music from the different genres and cultures?
Yeah, so when I was thinking about this before the interview, I really feel like let's dismantle this. As DJs, I think we're all well aware of the fact that 80 to 90% of our success is song selection. It doesn't matter how great the transition was if everybody hates the song, okay? So the vast majority of people having a good time from what we're doing is playing the right songs. So I think it's important to just have that perspective. If you're worried, how the heck am I gonna play a banda song at Nordstrom? How am I? Just please keep in mind that what we do is we play songs that resonate with people, that people like, that are favorites. And the transitions and the word plays and the loops and all that seamless stuff, that's really something that we do. You could mess the transition up horribly. It could be a train wreck. But if it's a song they like, they're not going to go sit down. I feel like I'm sure there are plenty of DJs who feel like when I played a certain song, it wasn't seamless. However, I feel like the people on the dance floor didn't really give a rat's. Do you know what I mean? So I think just that's something to consider. But having said that, when I'm playing a corporate dance event, a military event, a conference event, where largely it's a public, I'm dealing with just a vast demographic of people, right? In those kind of circumstances, I will try to play music in blocks. So I'm not just going to play one banda song and then go back to oldies or, whatever I was doing. I would try to play 3 songs in Spanish and then 3 oldies and then 3 country or whatever it is. I try to do that. And then also just so that the people kind of trust, well, if I get up for my Spanish music, I better not be getting up for just one song. So I want to respect their investment in getting out of their chairs. If it's a retail event, I really just keep it on shuffle. I'm not looking at a dance floor. So I want people to stay in the store longer. That's my whole goal. That's what I'm trying to do, right? So if every song that's coming up next, you're like, oh my gosh, what is she going to play next? Because she just went from funk to salsa to, if you keep them entertained like that, it's the world's best shuffle player. I think that we do accomplish keeping people interested. Was, oh, who knows what could be next? She's just doing everything here.
Even in a shopping scenario and your music's never played, I think that would keep me there shopping longer. Let's say you're from India and you play a Bollywood song. That might keep me there longer to say, oh, yeah, this DJ gets me. And I think that that's what we're trying to say here is that people that are relating are just going to be more invested in the music.
Absolutely. And there have been multiple times when I've been at retail gigs. In my career right now, I'm only DJing corporate events. So when I say retail gig, I mean, that's just all I'm doing. Almost every weekend, I'm at a retail gig. I do plenty of conferences and stuff like that too, but I have had numerous people come up and tell me that they stayed in the store longer because they enjoyed the music, or they left Nordstrom, they went and got something to drink, and then they came back to Nordstrom because they were enjoying the music. And I just feel like, what? That really works? But it does. It does. And that's really powerful. That's very, very powerful.
I love it. Just as a side note, did you ever think 10 years ago that you would be paid to play at a retail setting? I love that.
Yeah, no, I feel like in a few years, it's going to be a normal thing to be like, well, I got to go to my residency at Nordstrom. I got to go to my residency at Sephora. That's going to be a thing because we're doing it. We're getting it done for them. We are making sure that people stay in the store longer, engage with their products, and line up outside waiting to get into a VIP sale. And all of that is on our shoulders.
And that's fantastic. So something that I would have never thought of, but I can see it totally working too, just to keep people interested. And it's kind of the alcohol of the retail store.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really good comparison. When I do the VIP events for Nordstrom's, or I've done a lot of grand openings for Nike, they bring in food, they have promotional models. So just pretty people to greet you. And you know what I mean? It is a complete red carpet experience. And that also wasn't happening 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you were out in the parking lot under an easy up on a folding table, but now you are this integrated fixture in the store, and they wouldn't dream of having a sale without you there.
Time for a quick break from the show to let you know about the Wedding Music Letter. Are you struggling to find the wedding songs that match your personality and music style? Are you having a hard time keeping up with the new wedding songs being released? Then subscribe today to the Wedding Music Letter by going to my website, myweddingsongs.com, and clicking on the Join Now button. Every Wednesday, you'll get song ideas to build your wedding playlists. On the last day of the month, you'll get all of the new wedding songs released from the prior month. So subscribe today and join over 7,000 other engaged couples and wedding pros by going to myweddingsongs.com and joining the Wedding Music Letter today. Now back to the show.
I want to mention too, there's a really, really amazing article from Forbes. It's called The New Consumer Gatekeepers. And this article it quotes the president of BPM Supreme, guys from Scratch Music Group. Scratch provides retail DJs throughout the country. They just talk about how extremely powerful and impactful DJs are in the retail atmosphere. Anyway, this article just blew my mind, but it really hones in on the power that DJs have, not just to elevate people's mood and make them feel included, but to make people buy more stuff and like a brand more and become like super fans of a certain store versus just being someone that walks through on the way to the parking lot.
If you're an event planner or a DJ, this is a huge opportunity for you.
Yeah. Every time I'm at Nordstrom, you can always see a cash register from wherever you are. Or when I'm at Tommy Hilfiger too, because I play there a lot. I look at the people buying and I'm like, I've only been here half an hour and I've already paid for myself. I know I've already paid for myself. You know what I mean? It's all emotional buying and they get that little influx of hormones of oxytocin after a purchase and it all plays into that.
That's fantastic. That's a great story. Can you share an example of a playlist that you built that was particularly diverse and well received?
Sure. I have a ton of playlists everywhere, to be honest with you. I have multiple different websites and I got YouTube and blah, 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 blah. But I looked through all of my playlists because I wanted to give you a good answer. On my website, thecorporateeventdj.com, on my blog, there's a playlist called the Nordstrom VIP Sale playlist. So I've mentioned Nordstrom a number of times during this interview. So you can literally see the exact music that I'm talking about. And really this same playlist, it gets used, of course it gets updated and everything, but it gets used over and over again at almost every retail gig I do. It's going to be very, very similar to what's on that playlist. So it's the Nordstrom VIP Sale playlist on thecorporateeventdj.com.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And I'll add a link too in the comments of the show notes so that way people can directly link to that as well. How do you read the energy and preferences of the crowd on the dance floor or just around you just to ensure inclusivity?
Again, as a sociologist, I'm always reading the crowd, reading people, and obviously other DJs are the same. During the walk-in music or during the dinner music, when am I seeing toes tap? When am I seeing people singing along? We're constantly observing, right? So I don't think it's any different. You want to just continue looking at the crowd. I'll give you one example. A couple of years ago, I did a corporate holiday party where everybody that worked in the office was white. It was like a dump truck or a trucking company, something like that. All of the drivers, and there was more drivers than office staff, right? Which would make sense. So when I did the planning call with the white person from the office, she was just like, oh yeah, we want to hear this and that, some country. It's going to be at a ranch and it's country themed. So, definitely a lot of country music. Well, and then I get to the event and I'm like, country music? No. Yeah, of course we can do some of that, but I'm going to need to play some bandas and cumbias here because I'm just simply looking at what's in front of me, and I'm sure her intentions were good, but she had largely overlooked a huge portion of the company and the music that they were hoping to dance for. So I just have to switch gears. That's fine. Just be prepared for that. One other thing that's also helped me a lot, initially when I would do like planning phone calls with clients, I would ask, what kind of music do you want? Okay, you want hip hop, you don't like disco, whatever. I'm writing all that down. Now, for any kind of corporate or retail or any kind of businessy type of event, my question instead is, what's the demographic of your crowd? And I don't ask anymore about what genres you want because it's just not the same. And one of the examples when I talked about this at MEX, one of the examples I gave, when again, I've got an audience of 90% men in front of me, is I was like, all right, who knows what NBA Team Pass is? And of course, that's up my alley, right? So NBA Team Pass is this thing that you can buy from your cable company where if I'm a Sonics fan, because I'm from Seattle, when we used to have the Sonics in Seattle, if you're a Sonics fan, you could buy this NBA Team Pass, and even though I have moved to California, I can still get hometown coverage of my team. Why would someone pay for that? Because it's not about basketball, it's about my team. That matters to people. So if you're a woman, yes, you want to hear some woman music. You know what I mean? If you're this color or this age group or that age group or whatever your demographic is, it's not a real big gamble to play music that reflects that demographic.
Absolutely. That's a huge point that I want to hammer home during the reading the room process, that demographics is probably the most important thing that's going to determine what music that you play.
Absolutely. And I think once you get more comfortable thinking like this and doing this, you're going to find, just like I love to transition this into that. And I have a little trick I do when I do this song into that song. You develop these parts of your repertoire and you will come to develop those same go-to bits that you can use for these situations. So let me give you an example. When I am at a conference that's predominantly women, which I just had one last weekend, one of my little bits that I like to do is I'll play Jumpin' Jumpin' by Destiny's Child. And in that song, it says, leave your man at home and go out and dance. So when that song comes on, I'll be like, whose man's at home? Woo! And of course, they're at a conference. They didn't bring their husbands. And the crowd goes wild because women never get a chance to dance without your kids and without your man there. And you can just be as crazy as you want, but you'll find those little things that you can do to really resonate with people. And again, everything we do, we keep learning every event.
Being the constant entertainer. So let's get a little bit tricky, and I'm going to ask a hard question. Not that we haven't covered some hard questions already. How do you handle situations where guests request potentially offensive or exclusive music?
Again, let me give you a couple of real world examples. So I have played before at a lesbian bar in San Diego. It's probably my second time playing there. So I'm not super part of the team yet and comfortable. I'm just kind of getting used to being there and what the atmosphere is. And again, it's a lesbian bar, so it's mostly women. That's what we're catering to, right? A man who happened to be at the bar came over and asked me if I would play Chris Brown. Now, my first thought is this is a man who beat up Rihanna. Well, as soon as he beat up Rihanna, I'm kind of like, I'm not too interested in playing your music anymore, right? And people like poo-poo cancel culture or whatever, but I just feel like if you're going to beat up Rihanna, I'm not going to play you anymore. And I don't feel bad about it. There are consequences. So anyway, I don't really know the managers well at this place yet, but just instinctively, I thought, you know what? Probably no. I just think it's a no. And obviously I'm taking a risk. Anytime as a DJ where you just flat out tell somebody I'm not going to play your request, you are well aware of the repercussions. You can have some serious tension going on there. But I just told him I don't really think that's the vibe here. And is there something else you'd like to hear? After I was done with my set, I talked to the manager and I asked her, did I make the right decision? Should I have said no to this Chris Brown request coming from a man at a lesbian bar? And she was like, oh, Chris Brown, God, no, ew, no, yeah, you do the right thing. So it was really risky, it was, but ultimately I felt like I just went with my gut. And then another situation is with R. Kelly music. I think it's so polarizing for people as well. But anyway, another example is I play at my alma mater because I'm 2 miles away from the school and whatever. So when I do their new student party every August, and it's all 18-year-old people coming in and they want to have this ripping party where it's your first time being away from home and you're free and like, it's just such an awesome moment in their lives. But I was well aware before the event going into it, there's a high likelihood I may be asked to play music that's offensive because the music that's coming out now in the trap genre, a lot of it is very misogynistic. And that's the kind of music that will be played for a group of everyone's 18 years old. There's not a lot of diversity in this group age-wise. They're literally all born in the same year. I anticipated that in advance and I asked during the planning call, hey, how do you feel about misogynistic lyrics? Because I feel like as a woman, and these are young women in front of me who are impressionable and they're here to get educations, I don't really feel comfortable playing just overtly misogynistic lyrics. Would it be okay if for songs that I felt like were misogynistic, if I played a clean version? Because I don't know if you've noticed, but nowadays on clean versions of songs, it's not just about taking out those F-bombs. It's about taking out the suck my, and those misogynistic undertones have to be removed as well, because there's so much rape culture in the music that's not radio friendly, even though it wasn't a curse word necessarily. So I just had that conversation with her in advance. So I would already know going into it. And she was like, oh, yeah, no, clean versions. We want to have this adult party for these kids. We want it to feel like a nightclub, but also be safe because it's on campus. So we want dirty versions. We want them to be able to be like, F-bomb, and have that really fun college experience. But at the same time, yeah, we don't need to be pushing misogyny down their throats. So if you can anticipate those kind of situations and work it out in advance, that's helpful too.
What are your thoughts on the music that is raunchy that's out right now from female artists? So I'm going to flip the script a little bit of where you have WAP, you have Megan Thee Stallion songs, you have Sexy Red. What are your beliefs on that style of music too? Are we incorporating that in your talk as well?
Sure. I think that's a really good question. And, let's talk about those hard questions. So first of all, one thing to understand is that male DJs, when they play female artists, all of those songs that you just mentioned tend to be the go-tos. Male DJs are like, oh, I need to play a woman. Let me play Meg Thee Stallion. Let me play Nicki Minaj. Whereas I'm thinking, oh, if I need to play a female artist, I got to play Taylor Swift. It's got to be Britney Spears. Or even Harry Styles. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person with a vagina or Justin Bieber. Okay, another example. Men are really not listening to Justin Bieber. Women are listening to Justin Bieber. So if we take a look back, like thinking on those statistics that I originally mentioned, think about what it takes to break into a man's industry. The more masculine I am, the easier things are going to be, right? And hip hop and rock music are the most gender skewed of all genres of music with the least amount of women. So yes, of course, if you're gonna get your foot in the door and you wanna be a rapper, you're gonna have to understand the culture of that music, and that is the culture of that music, which is fine. I'm not saying to change that culture, but if it's hard to understand, well, why would women be talking about their WAPs? Well, that's why, because that's the culture of that music, and there's certainly plenty of songs by Meg Thee Stallion, by Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj has one called Moment for Life, or Meg Thee Stallion has one called Her. And those are female empowerment songs 100% through and through. Are those the songs we're hearing on the radio? No. But those artists have those songs as well. It's just they're B-sides.
I think exactly what you're saying, that just because you're not playing those popular songs that first come to mind, there are still other great songs that you can replace those with that have the right messages.
Yeah, and I have nothing against being raunchy or having a dirty, adulty part. There's nothing against that. Shoot, I'm out there fist pumping along with everyone else. I think that's a really fun time. And I think seeing a conference full of housewives or whatever, getting to have that one, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm so happy to provide that. But again, it's just simply having an awareness, and just that little switch in your mind can make a big difference.
You mentioned rock music. Shout out to Greta Van Fleet. Love them.
Yeah, tough to be a lady rocker. And, Joan Jett to me is just a huge, huge inspiration. Huge inspiration.
Pat Benatar, same time
Yes.
frame. Yep. So just kind of to close things out a little bit, what advice would you give to event planners that want to incorporate elements of inclusivity in their events?
It really starts from the ground level up. For example, as the event planner, if I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to hire a man DJ at this woman's conference, or I'm going to hire a white DJ at this conference for Black CEOs or whatever, then I've already kind of given up on really putting in that effort. It really does make a difference. Representation matters. So if I'm at a conference for all Hispanic people, which I've DJ'd some of those, and people walk in and they're like, hey, one of us, our team. It really does resonate with people in a positive way. So I think give some thought to who you're hiring for the event. I know I just a few weeks ago did an event called Women in Heavy Civil Engineering, and it's all women that pave roads and build bridges and make subways. It's crazy the amount of awesomeness in this room. So it was our second annual luncheon, so my second time being there, and I just feel like they clearly made a conscious effort that the photographer was a woman, the DJ was a woman, the videographer was a woman, the sound tech from the production company was a woman. That didn't happen by accident. It was because a planner said, this is a woman's event. We will have women on the team. We are out there. If you look for us, you will find us. So I think just being intentional about it, and we would not be sitting here having this conversation right now if this was already happening by itself. It has to be intentional. So if we don't put thought into it, if we don't make it a priority, it's not just going to work itself out, unfortunately.
I agree. It's not second nature yet.
Yeah, we have to work on it. And that's fine. We'll work on it.
Was there anything that we didn't talk about today that you wanted to talk about?
I think one of the things that I mentioned when I talked about this at MEX that I think really impacted people. A lot of people have seen the Elvis movie that just came out 2 years ago, and it's really prominent in the movie, especially at the beginning, that Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, was like, wait a minute, a white guy making black music? That is a moneymaker. And it shows in the movie how important it is that Elvis has white skin, right? Because he's singing the songs of all of these black artists in Memphis, but when he sings it, it's a hit. And when that person sings it, it's in a bar with 40 people on a back alley. So one of the things that I think is important to consider is how the role that DJs have played in robbing Black people of generational wealth. Because in the 50s, in the 60s, Black music was systematically not being played on radio stations. There was this huge scandal. It was called the Payola scandal. All these DJs were called into Congress to testify, and this includes Dick Clark, all of these major people. Think about it. When is a wedding florist being called into Congress because she has had a negative impact on our culture and robbed a generation of people of wealth? DJs, we are different. We have a ridiculous and tremendous amount of power over not just the people in front of us, but over the culture. Think of what we could do moving forward to right that wrong. Every time you pick a song to download or to not download, or you decide I'm going to play this or I'm not going to play this, it really does make a ripple on the pond. So be aware of that.
100%. I'm reminded of a story that I read recently where Ray Charles released an all country album. I'm not sure if it was the 60s. That's kind of what I remember. It was the number one R&B album. But guess what? It was never played on country music radio. And that's what we're talking about here, that it's the travesty of things like that. Just consider the music that you're playing.
Yeah, that's an excellent example. And even now, today, really, there's like 2 Black people in country music. That's it. And one of them is the former frontman of Hootie and the Blowfish. So someone that already had a high degree of expertise in navigating the politics of the music industry. Someone that already had a PhD. He had his stripes already. Right. Yeah.
Something to think about for sure. How can people contact you and find you?
I want to make it really, really clear. If you need help with Mexican music, I can help you. I lived in Mexico for 10 years. I literally have a Dropbox file with a bunch of songs in it that I have shared with all kinds of different people that has kind of some like 25 go-to Mexican songs. And I'll be happy to share that link with you if you need some help with Mexican music. So yeah, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Trackstar Staci, Staci. And my websites are thecorporateeventdj.com and palmspringscorporatedj.com.
Well, thank you very much, Staci, for being on this show and talking about, I think, a very important topic. Hopefully, we've opened some minds today. Stay tuned for another episode of the Wedding Songs Podcast, where we'll be interviewing another wedding pro or music pro, as in this case. Thanks for listening and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Wedding Songs Podcast. Never miss a future episode. Subscribe today to our podcast. Follow us on Facebook at My Wedding Songs and send us a message about playlists you would like covered.